Okay, let's talk about little about that SB 82, right? Weeks ago, the California Senate passes this bill called petty theft. I think that draw lots of attention in our community. The purpose of this bill is to require theft of property that is valued under $950 to be charged as misdemeanors, right? That's the purpose of the bill. So first, what's your position for this this bill, and what does that entail if it pass?
Well, I'm definitely opposed to it. I think that this is another way to make our community less safe, not more safe. I don't know anywhere else in the world, but here, especially here in California, where defendants, criminals, have more rights than victims, and that criminals have more right to be free than the victims who were harmed. It is the most backward thinking I've ever seen. Let me take you back to the history about this petty theft, because prior to Proposition 47, which passed in 2016, I think, yeah, 2016 or 2018, somewhere around there. So many propositions. I want to say 2018, actually. Proposition 47, what it did was before, grand theft is anything over $400. So any property theft over $400 is felony. Felony, you spent more than a year, and you actually spend your time in state prison, and that was 2, 4, 6 years minimum, and you have a felony conviction.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened with Proposition 47, and this is where it's really important, is it really about race? Because there was this whole movement saying, criminal laws are against, Blacks and Hispanics. And I think it's easy to look at the population of the state prison and say, oh, it must be racial. Now, I don't want to discount. There are cases there that's probably racist, race-based, and they're wrong. But majority of those cases, the crime did occur. So do we really say that's racism or not, right? So Proposition 47 increased the amount for the prosecutors. So it's 950 and below, that's misdemeanor petty theft, and anything above is grand theft. What we
Mm-hmm.
found, you'll talk to everybody, what we have found that criminals are not dummies. They will steal just enough under the $950.
Yeah.
And so they will always escape that felony conviction. And what happened was they get a slap on the finger, on the hand, I'm sorry. And, they don't even serve jail time. What this law is doing is taking it even further. It's actually redefining robbery.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
not just about petty theft, it's redefining robbery. So, robbery is taking something away from a property, away from somebody by force or fear. All right. And with that, it is felony conviction. You're looking at, I think 2, 4, and 6 years minimum. What it's doing now with under Senate Bill 82 is redefining robbery and making it first degree petty theft, meaning that if you use force or fear, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I come up to you and I'm very big. Let's say I'm a very big man that's like 7 feet, football player, come up to you. I'm that big, and I look at you and I take something away from you. And let's say I take away your laptop. That's over $950, right? I take away your phone, for example, and I didn't use any force. I just stand in front of you
Just
and I make you
intimidation.
stare, and
Right.
I take it away. That's robbery. However, under this law, that becomes petty theft because I didn't cause any injury, and I have to prove that I used a weapon or caused you great bodily injury. Now, if I push you, you fell and broke an ankle, then that's robbery. But if I push you and you fell, but you didn't, you only got a bruise, that's still going to be a petty theft, even though you got a bruise. So this is redefining robbery. It's going to also, what's really bad about the law is that it's retroactive. That means all those criminals that are in state prison right now, serving their time, they will be able to go to court and ask the court to resentence them as petty theft and let them out of jail in prison immediately. So we'll be seeing thousands of people being out of prison. And even more is, let's say you are in prison right now for DUI. And we added a 5-year enhancement because 3 years ago, you were convicted of robbery. And so we added 5 years to your sentence as for DUI. Okay. So guess what? If under this law, then that because you're serving additional time because of the robbery, they will eliminate that robbery from your record, recent, and then lower it to petty theft, and then let you out of prison. So there are a lot of consequences because, and I'm giving you the easy one. I mean, it could be vandalism. It could be rape. We can even say rape, and you're in prison for 3 years for rape, but because you had a prior violent conviction, which was robbery, and we add on 5 years, so you're serving 8 years because we view you as a violent criminal based on your criminal history. Well, then under this law, if it passes, then it's allowing you to go back and erase that 5 years. So there are a lot of dire consequences. We'll be seeing a lot of violent people coming out of prison under this law. And right now, when I check the legislature's website, it has passed the Public Safety Committee, and it's going to the Senate floor. If anyone is as scared as I am about the consequences of this law, you need to start calling your senators and your assembly person. Tell them you oppose this law, that it is bad for our community. It will only make our community less safe. We have already seen a spike, a tremendous increase in the amount of property crimes as a result of this petty theft change under Proposition 47. People said, I can steal. As long as under $950, I can steal and I don't have to go to prison. So I'll keep stealing. And tomorrow I break into another house and I only steal $700. And the day after I steal $400. You cannot add those together. That's two petty thefts. They're not going to be added together. So I can be breaking into people's homes or going to stores, stealing, and always under the $950, and yet never be put in prison. So I think it's a very, very slippery slope that we're in, and it's very dangerous.
So to briefly summarize your what you just said, so the background is still based on so-called race or racism, right? So they evaluate the result or the outcome in the prison, the ethnic group people's percentage. Then they decide, okay, let's change this definition of robbery and theft. But this is outrageous for me. Is these two words actually they have their original meanings, right? Theft, robbery. There's definitely a distinction. Like you just said, if I just intimidate someone because I'm stronger and maybe I hold something, maybe not exactly like a deadly weapon, but still, that's fear. But in this new documents or this new bill, it's very hard to define. It's just blur the action or the intention, right? And what exactly fear means? What exactly a great bodily injury means? Is this too vague for me? How to define those details?
Yeah, so if you get, cuts, if I have some kind of injury that resulted in me bleeding or broken bones, that can doesn't guarantee, but can move to the great bodily injury. But if it's just bruises or scratches, that's not going to be great bodily injury. And I had a case where I was, dealing with, I think, pencil. So is pencil a weapon or not?
It's sharp. It can be
Yeah,
deadly,
it can be, right?
right?
And so is it or not? We have in our statutes certain types of weapons that's considered dangerous. Um, and so I've had cases where defendants said, I didn't use a weapon because under the statute, and the item I was using doesn't fall under that statute. So I did not use a weapon. But it's really not the object, it's how you use it. And that's what prosecutors are going to have to deal with in terms of evidence of trying to figure out what is great bodily injury, what is a weapon. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of time arguing. But at the end of the day, like I said, how is it that we have become a society that care more about how how the defendant feels and how many and serving the punishment than care about the victims that they harm. I think as a society, though, it's important for us to determine, are we here for rehabilitation or retribution? This is something that in criminal law we've been talking about. Punishment. Do we punish people and make them pay for the crime, or do we put them in there because we also want to rehabilitate them and make them better people? And I think those are the questions we have to ask. I think if I were the governor for the day, I would be focusing on both. I would try to find a way to merge the two so that they actually serve their time. But I would not take away any funding that will help them become productive people when they exit. The problem right now is our prison. We spend a lot of time housing them, medical care. I mean, if you want a sex change, you can get it in prison. The government will pay for you to have a sex change, but they're not paying for skills, things to help you, right? And separately, we have a group of people who are saying we should not allow for prison industry, like making your license plate or making furniture, because that's slave labor. I
Hmm.
I said, wait a second, it's a program to give them skills so they can get a job as a carpenter when they get out.
Yeah.
So if you call that as slave labor, and I call that also repaying your debt to society,
And it's
they
also
they're
give meaning to their life. I mean, if they don't do something, what are you gonna do, right? They just spend time in the cell, and that's even more terrible for them.
yeah, and it's really I think it's funny that they said all of a sudden if you commit a crime and while you're in prison and you're working on something as a job, that's slave labor.
Hmm.
No, it's not forced labor. But these are programs to help people get jobs. And if we take that away, they're just going to sit there and watch TV all day and they're not rehabilitated. And they come back to the only life they know. The life
Yeah.
they know was a criminal life. What we want to do is rehabilitate. So there are a lot of things. And then it's still coming down to race, because even when they talk about that, they talk about, well, they come from poor families, typically, Black or Hispanic family. They didn't have anything. And you didn't put any money into education to help them or job training. And that's how come they end up in the criminal justice system. But yet the criminal justice system, when they're responding, trying to give them the skill, they get criticized for slave labor. So it seems like people don't want a solution.
Just make it permanent issue, so they always have some money to chase, or problem to be solved, right? This so they can stay in power. I think so. I think our audience should be advised, like even in this Stop Asian Hate movement. I think don't let people just get the focus blurred, and don't let them hijack the issue, making it into a grandiose racial conspiracy. Okay. I think that's we should be very aware of. So the last question is, I read this SB 82 on the California government's website, and it shows two sides, right? Support and opposition. and support. There's so many organizations supporting this, especially American Civil Liberties Union, which we are very familiar with, and a lot of other like even a prosecutor organization. I just don't get it, and why the opposition only have one unit, one group is Alameda County District Attorney's Office, why the opposition is so less.
Well, number one, because the progressives have done a really good job electing district attorneys who promote their policies. Look what happened with San Francisco with the former district attorney Gasson, who didn't want to prosecute anybody, who think there should be all free. And so after he finished in San Francisco, the progressives brought him down to Los Angeles, and and to defeat Jackie Lacey, who was really, she was doing a great job. She was the first DA in United States to recognize that we have some defendants who have mental health problems, and we should not punish people because of their mental health, cause them to commit the crime. She didn't say we don't punish you for the crime, but she's saying we need to look at you differently. And she created the mental health court. And then you have someone like Gasson coming from San Francisco come into LA and basically said, no, we're not going to prosecute a lot of these cases, those are the dire consequences, which is why you're not seeing oppositions from big cities or, other just prosecutors association, because they're starting to cause prosecutors to think that, the law is not fair, it's racist. We're moving to a society where we're basically saying criminal acts has no consequences unless it's murder. I mean, I think murder is the only one everybody will say, well, you need to serve time. But even that, you're hearing the progressives saying, well, if you do, it shouldn't be life in prison. Just, put them in there for 10 years and let them come out. And so we're starting to see a lot of problem of these type of policies and how it is literally making our society unsafe. I think it's really difficult to get people to be engaged at a level right now, because everybody's working off of emotions and racism and everything, and so they don't think. And it's not that hard to get the criminals to get all their friends and family to vote for these laws, and so they can be out of prison. I mean, that's not that hard.
Yeah, because they're personal. They're very
personal.
Because
they're mobilized. So I think it's important for your viewers to start getting involved. Know who you're voting for. Don't vote according to parties.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, because I do know friends in Los Angeles who voted according to their party, and they're regretting it right now with Gasson as their district attorney. They just said, I don't know what I was thinking. I said, well, that's what happens when you don't do your investigation. And so as Asian Americans, the community groups, we need to do a better job at outreach and education. And I think one of the problems I see right now, of course, I'm sounding more like a Republican in this view, but I do believe it's true, because all I see is promotion of Democrats on the Asian, from a lot of Asian outreach. Well, the problem is when you're elected leaders in your party and you only promote your party ideals, you're going to have bad results. And so I think it's important for any organization, if you really truly care about Asian American interests, is to present, both sides. And sometimes we don't vote for Asian Americans. Sometimes we'll vote for another person who promote Asian American values.
So I think with time is up, and thank you so much, Peggy. And hopefully we will see you again. All right.
Yes, and my pleasure. Nice to meet you. And thank you for having me on your show.